The middle of the generation of the ninth gen of consoles has started off on a rough foot with Microsoft announcing that $80 games was going to become kind of a standard for their new games, and Obsidian with the Outer Worlds 2 was going to be priced at $80 games, and more than likely a lot of their first party Xbox games were going to be $80. And not only that, but Nintendo was going to charge for their AAA games, $80 games. And even though they said it would be a case by case basis, they more than likely are going to live up to that promise. But unlike Nintendo, Xbox has completely backed off with pricing their first party AAA games to $80 because more than likely their pre order numbers weren't really that good. And Outer Worlds 2 is going to be $70, and the future of Xbox games are going to be $70, which is too much as it is. I think the games should cost $60 when games were costing $60. They were making all-time high profit, so it seems like it's too much as it is. And while this is good news, it kind of seems like people aren't really taking it as good news because it feels like Microsoft did this not only to charge $80 for games, and not only because of the fact that they wanted to push people to Xbox Game Pass, but also because they wanted people to get used to the fact that, yes, games are going to cost $70 whether you like it or not, and they're never going to go back to $60. And while, yes, they may have seen that their pre-order numbers really weren't that good for the Outer Worlds 2, the main reason why they tried this is because it was kind of a win-win situation for Microsoft. If people weren't really flocking to Game Pass like they wanted to, and the pre-order numbers weren't doing as good as they thought they were going to do with $80 games, they can just say, well, we really shouldn't have done that. We're going to bring it back down to $70 games and make people grateful that they did that, when in reality, the game should cost $60 in the first place. And while this is a good news, bad news situation, especially when it comes to the entire industry charging more for video games because they want to make more of a profit than they already are, which, by the way, I've said ad nauseum at this point that it is complete greed because of the fact that they make so much profit with these video games when they sell a lot. It looks like Nintendo really isn't feeling the heat when it comes to that kind of thing, because Nintendo and Super Mario Kart World, which is their first $80 game and the only company at the moment that is charging $80 for games, out of the 1.6 million Switch 2 consoles that have been sold so far, 82% of people who bought the Nintendo Switch 2 also bought the bundle Nintendo Switch 2 with Mario Kart World, which technically is a little bit of good news because the bundle with the Switch 2 with Mario Kart World kind of gave you a steep discount and got the game cheaper. But the also bad news about that is that even if they got a Nintendo Switch 2, that 82% more than likely got it separately. Which brings me to the inevitable critique of Nintendo fans, is that they are the weakest when it comes to making purchases for Nintendo and just giving them money. Nintendo at this point could charge you $90 games for a Smash Brothers games, and they more than likely would buy it. And don't even get me started with Animal Crossing. If that game is $80, it's gonna sell in droves. If it's a new Zelda game and it's $80, it's gonna sell in droves. Thankfully, 2 out of the 3 console makers and publishers, which is PlayStation, Nintendo, and Sony, PlayStation and Xbox, are sticking to their $70 games. But again, games should be cheaper. They should be more accessible for people to buy. In fact, we've seen a lot of games in sequel franchises for PlayStation and Xbox sell a lot less because of the fact that they're $70. God of War and God of War Ragnarok have a steep decline in difference in sales. Even though God of War Ragnarok did really well, God of War overall has sold 35 million copies, while God of War Ragnarok so far, and I know that God of War has been out a lot longer, Ragnarok has sold around 15 million copies. And overall is probably going to sell about 25 million copies, which is still great, but is not as good as God of War. And overall, Nintendo isn't the only one that's been trying to push this $80 games. We saw the Borderlands CEO say like, well, we don't know if the game is going to be $80 or $70. That's not my choice. But if you're a fan of the game, you'll figure out a way to afford that game. And of course, those comments didn't go well because of the fact that there was so much backlash that they charged $60 or $70 for that game. And again, this is more of a good news, bad news situations. While Xbox and PlayStation look like they're not gonna budge this generation at the very least to go to $80 games, Nintendo doesn't seem like they're going to back down on their AAA titles, and especially their AAA first party titles, which is the Nintendo, Kirby, Zelda, Metroid, Smash Brothers. All those games are probably going to stay at the $80 price, but thankfully, PlayStation and Xbox and PC are going to stay at $70, which is still a lot. Again, like, it's so annoying that people are like, "Yay, we're at $70 with games," but that's still a lot of money, guys. Like, that's still with tax like $75 or $79 around there. One can only hope that this trend stays like this because we've already had game prices go up 3 times with counting Nintendo's price hikes. And it's such a scam at the fact that even the digital versions of the games are $70, and with Nintendo's games also being digital $80 games, when the reason why they charge more in the first place for physical copies is because of the shipping costs, the disc costs, the box costs, everything that they have to do to give 30% to the manufacturer. Like, we understand, we get why they charge that much, but the reason why games are cheaper on PC is because they're digital only. And the fact that we're getting ripped off like that is so annoying. I hope that gamers keep their eyes open and keep vigilant when it comes to this kind of thing, because we're getting ripped off. We are 100% getting ripped off when it comes to prices of games, especially when it comes to the store sales that are in PlayStation, Nintendo, and Xbox. The store sales are insane. Like, we hardly ever get any really concrete sales when it comes to first party PlayStation games and first party Nintendo games. Xbox is a little better because if you have Game Pass, you get a steep discount to games that they have in their library. You get like 20% off, 30% off sometimes, and even with stacked on Game Pass discounts, you get a lot more. But when it comes to Nintendo and PlayStation, those sales are far few in between. With, of course, Nintendo doing it the worst and probably going on sale once or twice a year, which is why this $80 price hike is kind of ridiculous. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think Nintendo is going to keep their prices as is? Do you think that PlayStation or Xbox are going to raise their prices this generation? Do you think they're going to raise it next generation? If you got all the way through, make sure you comment $60 games, because that's what they should be priced. Let me know what you think below, and remember, you're pretty good.